Welcome to the Transform Sales Podcast, where forward-thinking business leaders come to share their experiences and ideas, learn from each other, and amplify their results together.
Hey all, and welcome to another episode of the Transform Sales Podcast Sales Software Review Series. Today, we're going to be talking to sales teams, and we're talking about prospecting. To help us with this conversation about how we might be able to overcome some of the challenges that come with prospecting, we have David Connors, co-founder and CEO at The Swarm. David, welcome to the show, and thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Danny. It's good to be here.
Yes, sir. So let's go ahead and hop into it. So we're going to talk about The Swarm for sales teams. And one of the things interesting about The Swarm is where a lot of people might be creating cold lists, cold prospecting lists. The Swarm actually allows people to leverage their teams and stakeholder networks to build prospect lists based on warm connections. Let's start off by talking a little bit, David, about what people are doing. What's the status quo right now? And what was it that triggered you guys or inspired you guys to start trying to solve this problem that the status quo kind of creates?
Yeah. So a lot of folks are doing this cold outbound, call it spray and pray motion, right? Which has got a heck of a lot easier in the last few years with this new sort of category of tools like the ZoomInfo, Apollo.io's, a lot of these tools that allow you to create target account lists of thousands of companies. And then with one click, send them email campaigns, and you could be sending thousands and thousands of emails, every week. Now, what that's resulted in is buyers' inboxes being overloaded with all of these undifferentiated offers and a lot of noise, effectively. So there's a ton of noise in your LinkedIn inbox, in your email inbox, on your phone. You're getting, missed dials and voicemails. So as an executive, as a buyer, you're just getting inundated. So we started thinking, all right, what cuts through that noise? And especially now with the advent of AI making that noise, 10x what it was before, these different AI SDR companies, these different other tools that allow you to just ramp up that cold outbound. What's that signal that's going to cut through the noise? And something that is available to every company that they have in their back pocket that they're really not harnessing is the relationships. And it's not just your individual relationships, but it's your company-wide, your collective network that you can you can really make the most of to help you to break into these accounts, to push them through to close. There's a bunch of different use cases for sales teams, but the core one I think we can focus on is just opening up and converting to a meeting, with a new customer. So that's where we sort of started to build this platform. As our customers have been coming on, they've been finding a lot of success with it.
Resonates with me because the noise, and you mentioned AI, it's like the gift and the curse. AI has made things easier. You could automate a lot of things, but like you said, there's also a lot of noise. And the more noise there is, the less likely one is willing to get into a conversation if they don't know who you are. And so cold outreach to warm prospects, call it that, just because there's some familiarity there, right? So let's go ahead and with no further ado, jump into the platform and see some of these features. Is you all right?
That's right. So just to set the scene here, I asked Tony to go to our website and sign up for a free account, totally free. And he started going through the onboarding, and I told him to stop, because, it's really pretty fast and you'll be through it kind of in no time. So I think you clicked one button. Is that right, Tony? Just to
right. Up to this point, all I did was log in using my Google, and then boom, it took me to this screen.
Okay. So let me just set the scene here before you kind of take the next step. So the Swarm is a platform that helps you to combine the networks of your key stakeholders, your team, your investors, your partners, your customers, right? Now, a key part of a lot of people's networks is their LinkedIn connections. So we allow users to import their LinkedIn with our Chrome extension, which makes it super easy and magical. It happens in the background. And let's try it now, Tony. So hit install extension there. And if you're on Chrome or Arc or any major browser, this should work fine. You just go add to Chrome. And what we're going to do is actually send a GDPR data request to LinkedIn, which gets a copy of your data. And then we enrich it from our own database. We have our own massive database of around 800 million profiles and 40 million companies. And as a Swarm user, you get direct access to that database and you get to layer your relationships on top. So Tony, just jump back into the Swarm website now. Let's see where you're at. Look at that. Okay, so it's picked up that your LinkedIn's connected and go continue. And then this is a proprietary source of connections that we give to every user of the Swarm. What we're doing here is we're looking through the previous companies you worked at and hit continue, and I'll explain as we go. And it's looking at the past companies you're at, and it's even picking up now, okay, CloudTask, is that a company that you're currently working at? And hit yes. Yep. And this is, again, another proprietary data source that we're giving you, which is the AI network mapper. Now hit enable, and I'll tell you what's gonna happen here. And CloudTask is fine, yep. And then let's go sales in here, just for sales teams, and just go no. I'll explore on my own. But if you need a little support with implementation, feel free to hit yes, and I can either me or someone on our team can chat to you. And then maybe go recommended by a friend. Yeah. There you go. We just like to see where the lead's coming from. Okay, so hit finish, and let me talk about what's going on here in the background. You can also watch a video of me talking about this, but I'll explain it live. So we're finding all the employees of CloudTask that are in our database right now. And then we're looking through, Tony, your network, as well as the networks of your colleagues. And we're seeing the companies that they've worked at and who overlapped with them at the same company at the same time. And then we score and rank all those people based on the length of the overlap. Was it a small company, a big company? Was it the same function, the same location? And we're then mapping those folks' networks without them doing anything. Okay? So this is the first step in building your Swarm, which is mapping your networks. Now, we like to seed your relationship graph with all of those work connections. And then the next step is inviting people into the platform to add their LinkedIn connections. Now, you've gone ahead and you've added your LinkedIn connections and by the Chrome extension. So those should start coming in. If you want to add more people, you can click that add more members button, at some point, down the line. But whenever you're ready, go to the people tab on the left-hand side. And let's see if some of these connections have started to come in. Okay, so you can see here we have 2752 connections, and they've already started to be scored with that connection strength scoring. So if you just scroll across a little bit, can you scroll across the page?
To the
Yes. Okay, look at this. So we have found 32 members that are already, we've started to look through their networks. Now, these folks are probably going to be the highest concentrated, connected to other CloudTask employees, right? So you're going to probably see a few CloudTask employees at the top here, because that's going to be the highest kind of density of relationships. But now, with this network graph that's going to keep building in the background, you'll see it's kind of doing its thing. It's importing your LinkedIn connections. It's starting to and yeah, exactly. And you can play around with these filters and columns. You can turn them on or off to kind of customize your view. But what you could do is, if you just click in someone's profile, we can kind of give you a little bit of an idea of the types of data you can kind of work with. So click on someone's name, say Matthias here, and you can start to see some of the jobs that we're at. This is actually more of a limited profile, but if we had emails, we'll provide those, personal and work email. And then what you can do is then start to think about the types of companies that you're trying to sell to, right? So this is step one, is building your swarm and mapping your network. Now we can all look at that. We're already up to 11,000 people in your network. Now this is just you, your LinkedIn connections, and your team's work connections. Again, emphasize, if you want the LinkedIn connections of anyone else, you have to invite them into your swarm. That person has to take an action to authorize us to go and get their LinkedIn connections. Otherwise, we can't get them, because we don't want to violate LinkedIn's terms of service. That user has to opt in to sharing their LinkedIn. Okay.
So that means that we can adding them to your swarm means that I don't necessarily have to add them to LinkedIn first, but I can add them directly to my swarm.
That's right. Yeah. So you don't have to be connected on LinkedIn, but anyone you invite into your swarm, they can add their LinkedIn, and they can also add their email and calendar connections. So that's another thing that you haven't even added yet, that you're more than welcome to. We'll look through your meetings, your calendar invites. From that email address, we'll then match to our database that person, and you'll pick up a whole bunch of people who maybe you've never connected with on LinkedIn, or you didn't know existed in your network, and we can kind of combine your LinkedIn plus email calendar plus your work overlap. So you can see here in the sources that these are all work overlap connections. So these are all folks who have worked with each other, and this page that you're on at the moment is this kind of breakdown of the relationships that you have to this individual. Now, for this one, I think this is a CloudTask employee. Is that right?
Yes, this is actually our CEO, Amir.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask on the strength. So I think you alluded to it, but I guess the familiarity strength would be using our interactions on LinkedIn to determine the strength of that familiarity.
So all of these folks, you can see the source here, that little briefcase means that they work together. So what we're actually looking at here is, what was the length of the overlap of working together? Was it in the same location, the same function? And that's why it's slightly different for everyone, depending on the type of overlap that they had. And you can see for some folks it's strong, for other ones it's familiar. But anyone that's a strong or familiar usually means that they know that person. If it's only weak, that's typically then just a LinkedIn connection, because a LinkedIn connection these days is actually a pretty weak signal of a relationship. Maybe 10% of people's LinkedIn connections they know well enough to be able to request an intro from them, versus what we're trying to display here is, again, that signal. What's the signal out of all the noise of all the connections? What's the signal of the relationships that you could actually leverage and take action on? So these are folks that would know the CEO well enough that if someone pinged Julian and said, "Hey, can you introduce me to Amir?" They'd say, "Oh, yep, we work together. Sure thing. Happy to do that."
So then let me ask you this. So then let's say, okay, so this is the strength of the relationship Jeff has with Amir.
Yeah.
And Jeff, I know, like we all were, where Jeff was here at CloudTask and would work in the office or right here directly with Amir on some occasions, then on most occasions, actually, then Greg was actually working remotely. And in both cases, I know Jeff and I know Greg, right? And I had a lot of interactions with them, but Amir had fewer interactions with Greg and a lot more interactions with Jeff. So how did the swarm pick up on this?
You picked up right on. There's a few different data sources, but the easiest one is to think of the LinkedIn profile, and the information that's on there says they worked at CloudTask and they worked in the same location for an extended period, and that's why Jeff and Amir are strongly connected. Whereas Greg and Amir had different locations. Maybe Greg was working remotely, had a different location, and we detected that. We could cross-reference that, and then we could see that actually, even though they work at the same company, maybe it wasn't as strong as some of these other folks in here. So you can see there's a lot of intelligence. There's a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes here in this AI network mapper to make these guesses. However, that's a thing to remember. These are all guesses, and these have all been done without Jeff or Amir lifting a finger or doing anything. Okay? So to get to, maybe this is 80% good, to get this to 90, 95, 99% good, you do need those users to take an action, to verify these relationships, to import their own data sources so we can cross-reference more data to be able to improve this scoring. But as you can see out of the box, it's pretty interesting. Now, at the moment, we're looking at current employees at CloudTask. Let's do something a little bit more interesting. Let's over to the companies tab on the left-hand side here. And let's type a name of a target account, some company that you'd like to talk to, or if you just scroll down and pick a company there, that's also good.
All right, let's just pick one at random. Let's pick Mailshake.
Sure. Okay, so this is the company profile for Mailshake. Now, as a Swarm user, we give you full access to our database. So you have access to the 31 employees that work at Mailshake. You can see that there. Similar to Zoom Info or Apollo or LinkedIn Sales Nav, you get all of the employees and contacts. Now, the way that we sort and prioritize that information is who do you have the strongest relationships with? So you can see here at the top that Andrea and Nabila used to so have connections with 46 and 44 members of your team. Now, this is probably because they used to work at CloudTask, if I had to take a guess. But it is very to jump in and have a look. So if you click on one of their names, we can have a look at their profile. Let's see. And look at that. They used to be a CloudTask. And that's why everyone here is a connection of theirs. So we also have the email there. You can see Andrea at Mailshake. That looks like a pretty solid one. We don't sell emails. Emails are just available out of the box for anyone that wants to go direct to Andrea. Maybe this position, you don't actually need a warm intro necessarily because you got so many connectors. You say, Andrea, used to work at CloudTask. I'm new here, but wondering if you wanted to set up a partnership with Mailshake, something like that. Yeah, whatever you want to do. Now, the more interesting one is then doing the warm intros. Okay, so that's what people come to the Swarm for. Usually, they've got their list of target accounts, and they say, out of these target accounts, where do we have warm intros? And then I come to the Swarm and I check for our warm intros into this account. So if you hop back just one screen, right here, that back button, perfect. What you can do is create a list for you. So maybe what you could do is just select the top handful of contacts here. So that's going to select all of them. You can do that as well. That's fine. But maybe just select the first 2 or 3 and go add to list. And you can create a new list here, which is a campaign maybe that you're running. You can see here there's different types depending on the use cases. And we have users for fundraising. People can use it for recruiting. Sales is the dominant one. And then you could call this Mailshake intros or something like that. Or this could be a campaign that you're running, which is your partnership, Q3 intros or whatever it is. And this list can be shared across your team and also to your relationship holders. So idea here is that you create this list. Yep. And don't worry about this other stuff for now. Like you can include more templates or different descriptions. But if you then head to lists on the left-hand side, you'll find all of your lists as a team here. And if you click on the name of that, the warm intros, you can see here then you've got some functionality where you can track the status of these lists. You can share this list externally. So this is then your workspace where you can be adding leads in here. You can be approving, rejecting, thumbs up, thumbs down. If you want, you can also export this as a CSV. So in the top right, in those 3 dots, you can export to a CSV, and that will then give you this data. You push that to a Google Sheet, push that into another platform if you like. So Swarm's here as a data platform, data company, but it's your data. So we want you to be able to use this data however you like. And if you want to push this data into another platform from here, you're more than welcome to do that. We're just trying to give you some functionality where if you don't have another platform like a CRM or sales engagement tool, that you have some ability to be able to process these leads in a pipeline and take some actions. So the final step is if you want to send an intro request, which is how you engage these leads. The final step is you need to have users with an email that you could send an intro request to. Now, because you haven't invited anyone into your team yet, that's not available. So what you can do is add emails manually, and then you can send an intro request to Andrea or to Nabila here. And that will be available just on this page when the email's added.
So, for example, in this case, I've got Andrea here. I've got the email for Andrea here.
Mm-hmm.
So then if I wanted to send her a message to request an introduction, however, I would need to go where here?
So you go to your members tab on the left-hand side.
Okay.
And then you can see here connectors in the top, in the middle, which is great. So it looks like we found 100, which is the max that we cut you off. If you have over 100, then we limit it to 100 of these connectors. But we can add more. You just let us know. That's when you can then upgrade your account to get more of these folks. So you can see that add email. So for any of these folks, we'll just be going in here and adding an email. This would be their cloud task email. Let's click on Andrea again, and let's find it. So if you got that connection strength in the middle, that gives you everyone that has a connection. So maybe Arturo could be, looks like this is the strongest. We usually list them at the top if they're the strongest. So let's go back in members, and then you can find Arturo in the connectors tab, and then you can add an email. You'll click it, you'll add it, and off you go.
And so again, that's really about trying to make sure as well, hey, I want to do my cold outreach, but I want to also make sure that anything I'm doing isn't violating LinkedIn policies or something like that, right? So
well, this is, rather than going cold to Andrea, you're leveraging this relationship that Arturo has. So we've done that mapping, and we've identified that Arturo has this relationship. The core thing here is we have mapped all of these relationships, and we provide you this platform where you can then search through your company's collective network, and then you can kind of choose how you engage with these leads. So if you go, then just jump into the companies tab again on the left-hand side. Yeah, the idea here is you have access to 10,000 companies where you have relationships, and there's this out of network filter in the top as well. And if you click that, we then give you access to the full database. And rather than 10,000 companies you're looking at 100 million companies or something stupid. Now, obviously, you're not going to have relationships with all those folks, but almost every company you can think about exists in this underlying database. It's extremely thorough, and you then get access to it as you sign up for the swarm. Yeah, you can and then you can add filters here as well. So, by company size, by industry. So maybe try that. Go add filter in the top left.
Add filter.
Yeah, maybe an easier way. So go company size there.
All right. I do this one. Name is here.
Yep. So this could be a way to actually then define your target account list. Say maybe go a little bit bigger companies, then we can kind of see some examples. Maybe we're selling into mid-market enterprise companies,
Right.
and we want to have 50 to and then maybe 200 to 500, 1,000, something like that. All right, let's apply that, and then let's choose our industry sector. Okay, so say we're going after companies, so company industry. Yep. And then you kind of can choose a couple that you like the sound of, say financial services. Maybe that's enough, just financial services. Go apply, and then add another filter and say, we're going for company headquarters is, say in the States, And then you can build your target account list this way by creating this list of companies, and you can kind of keep drilling in further and further. And this is looking at the out of network, right? Obviously, what we need.
So out of by default. I keep on clicking on that. It's like out of the network by default means you don't have any connections and you're not connected to it.
Exactly. So
Yes.
if you're going to zero out a network, you could just be using some other platform. Really, the power is this in network filter. So maybe just jump back into in network at the top.
So then what we're really covering right here, Dave, is the fact that while with the Swarm, you have the advantage of being able to tap into folks that are in network, meaning that you have a connection that's got someone there. You don't lose the ability to tap into out of network, which is the status quo on some of those other platforms.
Yeah, great way to put it. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so now I'm here and I can go and say...
Right. So now you can see you got 114 companies here, right? Now, these 114 companies that are the right size, in the right industry, the right location, that you have warm intro paths into, okay? And you can see at the top there, Expensify, wow, you've got a lot of connections in there, and that will be an interesting one to try and prospect into if you haven't already, because you got a lot of connectivity into that account. Right. So as the sales rep, by myself, I could do this, right? Because you've just done this. You haven't invited anyone. No one's been invited. No one's had to do anything. And immediately I can see at my company, we have a lot of connectivity with this account. And that's a good way to then prioritize how I do my prospecting. Is like, let's start with the warmest accounts and then work my way down.
Yes. Warmest accounts working out. So I wonder, let me see this. I want to do one other thing I think is cool. I'll get rid of the filter and then I can bring back the industry. This has got me thinking also how sometimes, it's not uncommon for someone to state their TAM as it's just all over the place. They don't want to commit to an industry. They don't want to commit to a size. So in this case, I'm looking at it like, okay, well, guess what? I can kind of learn, just like you said, maybe where I want to spend my time. Now all of a sudden I can say, all right, well, let me spend my time or figure out where the trends are, where I have the highest number of connections. Let me see, I clicked it. And all right, so now it's high to low. So then, and maybe I go ahead and say, I don't know, 20-80 rule. And like, hey, as long as I have this minimum number of connections there, this is where I'm going to start. I know at some point I'm going to hit a point where I just get down to ones. I'll assume that since there's 2,140 companies here, I could probably do something like anywhere I have at least 3 connections, or maybe in this case, I say at least I have 5. Right. And at least that way I could start just getting down to, I could reach out to anybody else later, but at least it could start helping me get into some type of prioritization mode, right?
Yep. That's it.
That's pretty cool. Then I can see, and then everything else is about. So tell me this, David, then this is, because a lot of times with tech and software, the let's call it kind of the double-edged sword, is have access to all of this potential. But in order for me to fully realize it, I have to actually start learning some new behaviors, right? So if I'm in here and one new behavior is I could kind of look and say, let me try prioritizing higher companies where I have the most connections, because those are ways I can get into them. When I go back to what I was doing earlier, I clicked on Andrea and I was thinking about it from the standpoint of, all right, this person, like, how will I think through which person, or how do I organize my process so that I put people in the buckets? These are my connectors that I'm going to connect through. These are the people on my prospect list that I want to reach out to and get in touch with. I'm guessing I'd use lists for that.
So I think probably the easiest in terms of workflow, like adding this into your existing workflow, is at the step before you start your cold outbound, you've identified your target account. What you do is you check the swarm to see if we have any warm intros. Okay? So it's going to be jumping in here, typing in the company name, or just, finding the company, say it's Open English, whatever it is. Yeah. Click on that company. Yep. And then you check what's our warm intros, right? So we have a look through our connection paths here, and we see, are any of these people interesting or relevant that I could leverage? Are there C-suite? Are there, execs in here that I could be taking advantage of? And If no, cool. Do my normal cold outbound play. If yes, then send these warm intros. Now, the second easy one is as an account exec or someone who is sort of dealing with leads that are further down in the pipeline and they're trying to close deals. The second great use case is multi-threading. So I'm talking open English, but maybe as an account executive, I'm only talking to one person there. And I want to understand, are there other folks that I could be having parallel conversations with? The number of conversations I'm having internally, link your relationship, the likelihood of that deal is going to close. And maybe there's a line to the CEO that I haven't thought about because our investors connected there. Maybe our head of finance used to work with their CFO and we should be looping them in because they're on the buying committee. There's all these kinds of potential opportunities that surface once those relationships are revealed. So those are the two I'd sort of have in mind. That's pretty easy lift. That's kind of just checking the swarm when you are at that point. Check for warm intro, check for multi-threading.
Nice. So then I see that Mauro, one of my connectors, the one who even I requested to add the email for, right, has all of these different connections at the company. So I know that this is my connector. And then to your point earlier about then trying to figure out who it is. Okay, great. I can look in the title section and I can kind of say, okay, this is somebody related to business development and prospecting, business to business. Maybe I want to talk to Luis. Maybe that's someone I'd want to put on my prospect list.
Yep.
Just add them here, add the list, and probably create a new list. That's the intro. So I just say ping and say prospects. I just do Q4 2024 prospects kind of thing, whatever I want to do.
Exactly, yeah. For the quarter, or you could batch it for just that relationship, all of this. You could say Mauro's, intros, and then you go to him and say, hey, Mauro, here's 10 intros I've identified that'd be helpful. Yeah. Can you send these out, or can you ping these people for us? Yeah.
So now with this one, then in that context, once Mauro's email is added to the swarm, I will be able to message Mauro through my account and ask him for example, an introduction to Luis.
That's right. Yeah. If you want to see it work live, I mean, what we could do is, if we have another 1 or 2 minutes, I can add my connections in here so you could see it if you want.
Yeah,
all right. So let's go back into members, and you're still going to keep driving. So go to members and invite me in. I'll show you how quick it is to add someone on the back end. If I'm already a Swarm user, I just get a notification. So go add members in the top right.
All right. Add members.
And then just go maybe contributor and go David at the Swarm. And then I just get a notification. It's just a pop-up. And just go send invite that says you've been invited to this team. I click accept. Okay. And go there. And look, boom, all my connections are then added in. All right. Nice. So you then go to, just go back to the people page. Maybe we can just show an example in here. And go add filter and connected to, which means that it's a network you're looking at, and then type in David Connors. Yep. These are now all my connections. And if you click on some random person, say Pack Ray at Sequoia, one that Pack Ray, he's worked with Sequoia, right? You're like, all right, David used to work with Pat. Maybe he knows him. Go request intro there.
Request intro. Bing.
And then this is that example that I mentioned. This is a template. So it comes from the Swarm, but you can copy yourself on it. These are all variables you can adjust, templates you can do. And you can go preview, or you can just send now, and that goes to me. And copy.
We've done a preview just for the purposes of it. Let's see. Preview. Bing.
So it looks, something pretty easy. And we have a link to their LinkedIn that's hyperlinked already. Saves you a bunch of time. There's a template you can include below that we had in those lists, where it's like, here's a bit more about our company, and here's some other customers we work with, maybe a one-pager, different things that would be helpful. But you can see how easy that is to send out. once you have a member with it.
I don't have to type anything. Just boom, it's already set.
That
I can go through many of those. And, it's funny. I was actually thinking this, last week. It's that not only does it make it easy to go ahead and do the outreach, but in this digital world, sometimes we just lose track of folks. Like, we're connected, but the deal is, like, you're connected, but you're not talking sometimes, right? So I also even like the fact that even in this, it almost feels like there's a little bit, it's a relationship building tool. There's more than just even the prospecting that happens there. It kind of also keeps your relationships and your network fresh when you are leveraging your relationships. Like, that's the idea, right?
absolutely.
Love it. So then let's go to, I believe we actually ended up covering a lot of what we normally go through just by virtue of doing the demo. I mean, what's required to set up? Pretty direct. Few seconds, I was into the account. It already started adding people automatically. And I would say, we've been on the call for, I'm going to call it 41 minutes right now. And all of those connections, they were all just happening automatically while we were doing other things in the platform. So it's obvious no one's really required to set this thing up. It's pretty much click and go. Everything else probably is more around, getting used to the new behaviors and just understanding like how to navigate through it. Do you all have some resources and things like that kind of help with some best practices and things of that nature as people start getting comfortable with this, leveraging their connections to do cold prospecting and so forth?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a whole learning center and academy on the website, and in the app, in that intercom, there's a bunch of material and content in there to help people get started.
And then, like you mentioned, your team is available to have you all actually do live calls, or people go in there and schedule meetings and they're talking to a real person, or are we talking about chat support and AI bots?
Yeah, now every time you ping us in that chat, you're talking to a real person, someone on our team. We're still a small team. There's 12 of us, and we're headquartered here in San Francisco. But every time you chat to us, you'll talk to either myself or someone on the team.
Nice. And of course, I got the KPI button up here then off the top based on what we've seen. Well, we kind of started out with the KPIs directly relate to the challenges that you were already talking about, right? So we're talking about prospect list growth. We got access to it. We've still got access to out of network or in network, meaning people that you are directly connected to, or 6 degrees of separation, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon going on, that, as well as out of network folks that you may not have any related connections with. And ultimately what we should be seeing there is list size growing, outreach, response rate increasing, and ultimately more bookings when it comes to cold prospecting on a B2B basis, more acceptance, a higher conversion rate on meetings that could lead to accelerated sales growth.
That's it.
Awesome. Well, David, thank you so much for your time today. All of you all out there that are doing prospecting, I hope this was helpful for you. You got another tool that you could add to your toolkit to improve upon the results you're getting with your cold prospecting teams or motions. And as you saw, we've got a 30-day free trial that looks like you get access to the premium offerings for 30 days. So you could see if it'll work for you. And if it does, maybe then you're going to be that much closer to crushing your revenue goals. Thanks again, Dave. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one.